In chapter 2988, the focus shifts to the deep emotional bonds between Sonny, his aunt Serenity, and Duncan, contrasted with the strained relationship he shares with his biological father, Hank. The chapter begins with Serenity, reassuring Sonny that his suitcase is packed and ready for the trip to Jensburg, where his mother Liberty is eagerly waiting for him. Sonny, filled with excitement, urges Duncan to hurry so they don't keep his mother waiting. The mutual affection between Sonny and Duncan is evident as Sonny comfortably sits on Duncan's lap, showing his deep trust and love for him. Duncan, always considerate, asks Sonny if he's hungry, showing his concern for the child's well being. Sonny, who had already eaten snacks at kindergarten, cheerfully declines, eager to embark on the journey. Duncan and Serenity have both made sure that Sonny will have plenty of food and drink during the trip, highlighting their dedication to his comfort and happiness. As they prepare to leave, Duncan suggests that Serenity doesn't need to accompany them to the airport, assuring her that he will take good care of the little boy. Serenity, trusting Duncan completely, agrees and instructs Sonny to message her once he meets his mother. Sonny promises to remember all his loved ones back home, including his aunt, uncle, and cousin. Just as he is about to get into the car, his father Hank unexpectedly arrives, holding a candid haw in his hand. Sonny, seeing his father, instinctively stops getting into the car and slips off Duncan's lap, aware that Hank disapproves of the close bond between him and Duncan. Despite his young age, he is perceptive enough to understand the tension between his father and Duncan, choosing to avoid actions that might provoke Hank. Hank, trying to assert his role as Sonny's father, hands the candid haw to Sonny, who reluctantly accepts it out of politeness. Although Sonny doesn't particularly like the treat, he takes it to avoid conflict, demonstrating his growing maturity. Hank's gesture is more about maintaining his presence in Sonny's life rather than a genuine act of affection, a point that is subtly highlighted through Sonny's indifferent response. The interaction between Hank and the others is marked by underlying tension. Hank's gaze towards Duncan seems to convey a silent challenge, as if reminding everyone that, regardless of Duncan's kindness, Sonny is still his son. However, this attempt to reassert his paternal authority is undermined by Sonny's immediate rejection of his proposal to spend time with him. Hank's request to take Sonny for a few days, citing that his parents miss their grandson, is met with an unexpected refusal from the little boy. Sonny, with a firm resolve, expresses his desire to join Duncan in visiting his mother instead of staying with Hank. This decision highlights Sonny's clear preference for his mother and Duncan, signaling a shift in his loyalties and affections. His reluctance to stay with Hank is rooted in his past experiences. Although he spent the first 2 years of his life living with Hank, those memories are overshadowed by the negative atmosphere at his father's house. The chapter reveals that when Sonny visits Hank's home, he is met with sighs from his grandfather and manipulative behavior from his grandmother, who attempts to convince him to ask his mother to remarry Hank. This manipulative pressure further alienates Sonny from his paternal grandparents and strengthens his resolve to stay close to his mother and Duncan. The chapter concludes with Sonny standing by his decision, a choice that reflects his understanding of who truly cares for him. This choice is a significant moment in the story, illustrating his growing sense of independence and his ability to discern who genuinely has his best interest at heart. His bond with Duncan and his mother is portrayed as a source of stability and love in contrast to the straight and manipulative environment he experiences with Hank and his family.